So the first time, like when I was young, there's just a lot of memories. Okay, so I remember when I first moved to Roosevelt Island. It was right after third grade. I just left private school and we got enrolled into public school in PS 217. And I remember it was like a Saturday or a Sunday, and I was out in Blackwell Park, which is right next to Blackwell House, just like this old decrepit ghost house on Roosevelt Island. And I was just shooting by myself, kind of hanging out. That's something I've always done. Like, I've always had my own space growing up. And I saw two girls walking past the East River. I think, yeah, the East River, like on the Queen side, going down the sidewalk, and they yelled out at me, "Oh, that nigga black like charcoal," right? And for me, I didn't think much of it, but I was just like, oh, I never thought that was something people even noticed, because I come from Senegal. Right. Everybody's black like charcoal. So I was just like, oh, all right, cool. And over time, I kind of noticed that it was more than just a tease. People were like, oh, don't hang out with him. You would hear things like, especially from like Spanish and like Asian and like some white parents, they would say like, oh, you can't hang out with them. They're like this, we're like this. And you would see things like that unfold. And that was the first time I ever felt like, I'm not like the other. I'm like one of these things or not like the other. And I guess from that, I've always accepted that. My brother took the other route where he was like trying to get integrated still. And he was like reaching out for people, approval seeking. And I saw that and I didn't like that. And I guess that was the catalyst for me to not be like that. And maybe I would have been like that if I didn't see that example directly. But from that, I kind of just went completely independent. Just was like, all right, I'll do my own thing. If you don't like me, it's okay. If you like me, great. And from there, I kind of always had my own little bubble. And until it took a very, very long time, maybe until junior year high school, I like cracked that shell. And I started opening up to the potential that, being an immigrant in this country is, some people do accept that. It's not everyone's like, oh, you're different. Some people acknowledge the difference without making it mean anything. Mm-hmm. And I got a chance to see an example of that when my Mexican girlfriend, Erica, introduced me to her family, who weren't very approving. But her sister, her brother, some of her friends, we came together, and I kind of felt for the first time, when you make that separation, you kind of see, okay, not everybody's like that. I cannot make that generalization. I can't be accepted. And from there, I kind of reopened up my shell. I went back into altruism, caring for other people, not being so... I was never self-centered, but I always cared about just either me or my group or my pack, or my team. After that, I was like, oh, you know what? People are assholes, but they're just misguided. I kind of saw things from another perspective. So I would say that Erica was, to answer the second question, she was kind of like the first example of someone that not so much I felt represented, but I felt like I can be included in a big group. In terms of representation, I never really looked at someone who was black or African or anything like that. The closest thing would maybe be baseball. And there was this one player, Matt Duffy, the third baseman for the San Francisco Giants. On there, it wasn't really a three-peat because they won 3 championships, but each of them was like, it was like 2012, 2014, 2016 or something like that. It wasn't back-to-back, but they went on a little dynasty. And during that time, he kind of got some traction, and he's 6'4", 6'5", 180 pounds soaking wet. And he was the guy that I looked at. This was a little bit like around when I was about to give up on baseball, because I looked around, and at this time I was playing in South Georgia, Albany, Georgia. And I looked around and everyone was just cornbread and pork and like 200 something pounds. And I'm like this 6'4", 170 pound African kid with a decent arm. And, I kind of thought about maybe this stuff matters to scouts, and after I saw him, I was like, you know what? Nah, fuck that shit. If I could hit a ball, if I could do what he does, I can play at his level. So that's maybe the first time in pop culture I felt represented in some way that inspired me.
Then?
I was maybe 19, 20. I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah, in Senegal, like, it was like my culture, and it's like my people, so it's like everywhere you look, you see someone that is kind of like you, and there's maybe a 80% chance they look exactly like you, you know? So it wasn't hard to find representation in Senegal. And when I came to the US, I kind of just let go of that idea, because before you come here, you know what America's gone through, you know, everything like that. So you have an idea that you're going to have certain challenges, and our parents did too. My dad was here 2 years before I came. He gave us the talk. He was like, you know, you can't expect people to be warm to you here, you know. So he kind of let us know how racism works, and how it's not some guy tying you up to a pole and whipping you. It's just more of a, you know, condescending, you are less than me kind of thing. And if he didn't give us that feeling, we would have we would have been very confused when we came here, because it came out a lot, and it was very confusing when it came from people you thought it wouldn't come from, like other colored people, African, Spanish, not African, African American, Spanish, and other people. But that's how it is, and you kind of learn to accept it. And when you accept it, you can accept the people that live that way, because you kind of realize that they really didn't know. In the same way, from what I understand, people down south, especially like around like Tennessee, Kentucky, that belt where it's kind of north, kind of south, and it's like kind of big cities and kind of rural. A lot of black people in those areas, they have to tell their kids, hey, you know, you're gonna have to deal with getting stopped by the cops more. You're gonna have to deal with people making these kinds of comments. They think they're just making a joke. Don't take offense to it. They think they're just making a joke, you know. And I know that's a conversation that comes out a lot. It was something very similar to that. It was like learn to push beyond this, more than it was like a hateful kind of agitating speech. And it wasn't until, like I mentioned, like junior year high school, where I got involved with a group of people that weren't like me, that, you know, accepted me in that way, that I kind of moved away from that. Because before that, of course, you know, Africans get together. I had my best friend Baba, one of my Jamaican friends Caron, one of my black friends Jarrett. You know, we kind of had like this outcast thing going on, but we weren't like angry outcasts.
Right.
You know, we were just like, they're not cool with us, but that's okay. We got each other. You know, we all had something. Jared had the Yu-Gi-Oh! Caron had the running and the football, and we all had things we could do together. Ashley, you met Ashley, right?
No, never met him.
You never, man.
No.
Well,
I've heard a lot about him.
Yeah, so I met him in 4th grade, like my first year there, and you know, his family was very welcoming. And considering the prejudices I had about Dominican people and Puerto Ricans living in the Bronx and stuff like that, I kind of looked at them and was like, yeah, they're nice to me, but they don't accept me, you know. But they kind of showed me, yeah, you know, once someone gets to know you, they'll accept you. Because Ashley has a strong family. Like, he has 4 brothers and about 6 or 7 friends that he could consider brothers, a strong mother, a father who's a priest, who's all about family values, who keeps the family bound together. Everyone focuses on family. So he comes from a very good background. And Erica as well. She comes from a very good, strong, Mexican, hardworking family. She was solid. Nothing could move her. And she was a cheerleader. She was on the cheer team. She was a dancer. She played soccer. You know, like, she was very well known around Lehman. So Erica Estrada, in case you're listening. But she was definitely like just solid. So being around her, it made me more comfortable, because I saw what a comfortable person was like. And I didn't notice that I was uncomfortable, and I was kind of like anxious and pushing away.
Yeah, so why didn't you feel that way?
It was just like from the sense of separation I had from just, because, you know, kids are just tease and kids are just mean in general, but they don't mean it. Everyone regrets it when they get older, especially when they realize it had an impact. But you take that seriously when you're a child. And I took it seriously when I was a child. And I had people say things, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, I don't have to talk to you anymore. You know, that kind of attitude. I didn't say that, but I would just be like, okay, that's not my people. And growing up even, it sticks with me just a little bit. There are some times where I have to like be in the moment and catch myself, because I'll catch someone saying something like, like making a generalization, like, oh, all Africans this, or all black people this, or all white people this, or all rich people this, or all Republicans this, or whatever generalization, and I just get activated. I'm just like, how do you know? Have you met everyone? Like, why would you say? Like, I just get into it, and I don't notice it, and it's until a few seconds later, if I do see it, where I'm like, wow, like that's still with me, you know, like that kind of like resentment towards generalization, because I was kind of a victim of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have like specific stories from when you were little that you remember?
Of anything?
Yeah.
I have some adult ones too, but let me reach back. Oh, okay. So another time I was on a basketball court by myself, and it was after school.
How old?
This was maybe 11, 9, 10, 11,
Okay.
around that age, middle school. And something just came up. Oh, never mind. That's the back. Okay, so I was on the basketball court, and there was this one kid, this one bully, Darren. And he just bullied everybody, and I think his life just sucked in general at home. I was playing ball by myself, and I was just practicing my threes. And everyone kind of came together, like the whole after-school crowd, and they went to Blackwell. And the new park just opened up, so everybody was like sitting on the staircases, walking into the park, and just like hanging out, doing whatever. And some of them came back, was like, yo, can we shoot? And I'm just like, yo, like, you know everybody. And so it's like, of course, yeah, go ahead, shoot. So we were shooting around, and the dude Darren came around, and he said some nonsense to me, some like, oh, yo, you think you tough because you live in the Bronx, or something like that. Because this is a little bit after, you know, we moved into the Bronx, we had that issue.
Was Blackwell not in the Bronx?
No, Blackwell is in Roosevelt Island,
Oh, okay.
but I was still going to 217 until I graduated middle school.
Right.
But I was in Blackwell, and he came around, he said something like that, and I was like, I don't give a fuck if I live in the Bronx, like, you know, like, he said something else, but I was like, I don't give a fuck if I live in the Bronx, I'll fuck you up right now, because he said something that was like aggressive, and I gave it back to him, but I was kind of bluffing. I thought he would do nothing with it. I've never seen him fight anyone. So he sprayed cologne in my eyes, and that sucked. And I don't think I responded physically. I was just like, what the fuck, like covering my eyes. And people were separating him, but he was kind of like still coming after me. And I remember like I was just like throwing punches, and I was just going, like getting nowhere near him. And then everyone separated him and me, and like we kind of went our own separate ways. And I guess on the way back home, because 555 was like a 10-minute walk from Blackwell, and you know, I was just gonna hang out there with Ashley for a little bit, then walk to the F train. And on the walk there, I was like you know those super dark moments where you're just like just thinking to yourself and stuff, and you're thinking about like the world and what you think about the world. And you know, after that happened, you know, I was kind of like you know, there are some people who really matter to me, and there are some people who are just like cockroaches, you know. And considering at the time Ben was still alive, he was walking with me, so it was me, Ben, Ashley, and Kevin. We were walking back to Main Street, and I was like, yo, these are my people, you know, these are my pack. And since then, you know, even though that was a particularly bad day, since then, every day after school, even when I was going to Lehman, I would make that long ass trip from Lehman on the 6 train to Lexington, to get on the F train to go to Roosevelt Island, to hang out with them until 9 o'clock when the MetroCard finished, to get back on the F train, to get on the 6 train, to go all the way to Cypress Avenue to go back home in the Bronx. And I would do that, I can't even count how many times, just because I felt like so close to these guys. So that was like, through adversity comes strong bonds. So I think that's a story that like kind of really brought me together with everyone. Because before that, I was just like, oh, you know, these are my friends. I do stuff with them. And then it kind of became like, these are my brothers. And just during the walk, I just saw them just walking. We were talking about bullshit, like football game or something. And just in looking around, I was just like, you know, these people are with me right now. But those people over there, even the people who were just bystanders that I say what up to in school, they didn't do anything, you know. So those aren't my people. These are my people. You know, so it's kind of like, you know, the soldier who, you know, after war, he becomes brothers with his fellow members, his fellow teammates, where if he didn't go to war with them, they would have just been nobodies. You know, it's like the adversity that brings them together.
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun memories too. I'm not only going to talk about the stressful ones. So, freshman year high school. Actually, no, sophomore year high school. Freshman year, I came in during spring ball, so I didn't play the full season for football. But sophomore year, we went undefeated that season. We were playing Columbus versus Lehman High School, and I was playing outside linebacker. And I remember during the game, it was like one of those games where I was like, all right, this is my first start. I'm going to prove myself. I'm going to lay the hurt. I'm going to do something. People are going to talk about it. And I remember there was one play. It was like a screen, which is like when the quarterback gets the ball, he takes a couple steps and he throws it like to his side, and the running back gets it and tries to run upfield. So the quarterback just threw it, and the running back got it, but I was covering the running back, so I was like 5 feet away from him. And I saw the ball in the air, and it was just like juicy. I was like, here's the moment, right? But when the ball like reached the apex and it was coming down, I was like, shit, it's gonna get there too fast. I'm not gonna get to the ball. I'm gonna have to just get to the receiver. So the running back just caught the ball when I got there, and I broke down and like dived at him. But it's like he was big, so he like kind of crashed into me, and he went backwards a little bit, and I like kind of stood my ground, but he hit the top of my head. So I got a stinger, and that's like where like your spine collapses a little bit because pressure comes down from the top of your head. Yeah. And you just feel like this electricity, like these chills down your spine for like a good 10 minutes.
Wow.
And I was like, all right, there you go. I'm paralyzed. No more football, you know? But like I walked it off. But in that moment when I actually hit him, the ball came out, and one of our inside linebackers picked it up, and he ran it the rest of the way. And the running back was just on the floor. Like I got him good, but like I was like dazed myself. So I was like gathering myself, and I looked up and I just heard, and then someone came from behind me and like pushed me. It was like, good shit. And I was like, yeah. And like, so pretty much after we scored, we have like 2 plays before we have to get back on defense. So I went to the sideline. Everyone was like smacking my ass. We were like, good job. And the Coach Vance, she was a woman. She was like my first legitimate like coach. Like she whooped my ass, you know, like, and she said the funniest thing, I'll always remember it. She was like, so did you hit him or did he hit you? And I always remember that. I was dying laughing. I was like, I hit him, Coach, I hit him. When you look at the tape, because every Monday because our games, we were JV, so our games were Saturday, we got rest day on Sunday, and we had film on Monday. So on film day on Monday, we were looking at the film, and she replayed it like I shit you not, like 20 times. And 3 times she was like, all right guys, pay attention, this is how not to tackle. And everybody got a chance to see me just like get dazed out and then catch myself and start celebrating out of nowhere like I actually did something.
That's hilarious.
Which was funny. That was a good one.
Do you remember how old were you when you moved to New York from Senegal?
6.
Do you remember anything before that?
Yeah, I had a whole childhood before that. Most of the memories were just, they're vague, but I have some good memories. It's just, you know, I had a very strict Muslim upbringing, you know, so unfortunately a lot of my imprints are from that, the lessons, more than the actual experiences. Some of them were good. I learned a lot. Most of my good memories were recent, because I feel like my life was like built up, because my dad had this vision of me and he had 2 kids before me, so I think he had the whole idea of, oh, you know, this one's gonna be the right one.
The perfect.
You know, yeah. So I kind of felt that vibe. He gave me like all types of courses and stuff like that. So I think like I have a little Benjamin Button syndrome, where I was like an adult before I was a child, and now I'm just like leaving the child phase. Like I entered adulthood with a whole bunch of skills and connections and things like that, but I kind of like didn't have the enjoyment, and I had the enjoyment right afterward. which is good, because I get to do a lot of stuff now that I look around and I see people don't get to do. So I appreciate those for sure. So that kid who kind of like grew up in the gutter and had those lessons young and then had to grow up and become industrious and hardworking and self-taught and intelligent later, I kind of just was the reverse of that. We both have the same lessons in different time spans. There were some times, I had my friends. We would walk around in the sand lots and like literally like eat sand and fucking jump off the second story of buildings and land in the sand and like catch scorpions and pull their tails off, like do all types of weird shit. What else? We would be out even at night. It was that kind of community. You'd be out at night and it would be street vendors and maybe like 10, 11 p.m. selling mangoes with salt, and they just give it to you because you were kids, and it's that kind of community, and everyone's Muslim, so not only is there the law of, if you hurt anyone, you go to jail and you face, public social persecution and things like that, but there's also God is watching you. So all those pressures keep anyone from doing anything particularly harmful to other people. So it was very safe. Even to this day, you ask people, how's it like in Dakar or downtown Dakar, Senegal? It's like, you can go there wearing a Gucci sweater and a Rolex and a Lamborghini, no one's gonna bother you. It's that kind of place, which is I appreciate, which I also want to go back to. But one of the things I appreciate is also one of the things I want to change, because I see in a lot of young Africans who are in the similar situation, when you look at it from third person, they're kind of like defeated, because they come from a society where it's like you have to be this example of this human being, and then you come to a country that wouldn't accept you anyway, and you just deal with this, wow, what can I do to be accepted? And it leads to this, suicidal giving up. But again, part of that acceptance, that general acceptance, especially among young people, if you see a young person in Senegal, it's pretty much the playground, oh, hey, can we play kind of attitude, no matter what. So that I appreciated. There were a lot of those examples. You just be walking to school, you see some kid you never saw before, and like you share a cup of water with him, and it's just like, what's your name? And you just like meet, and that's it, and if you see each other again, you see each other again. If you don't, at least you met once,
Do you think that the experience will be different for you going back to Dakar, like after experiencing this community?
I'll have different...
For so long.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I'll have different perspectives, and I'll think of the world in a different way, which is going to change my behavior.
Right.
So Senegalese people are going to look at me a little differently. They're going to look at me the same way they kind of see African Americans, which they don't like. They say they're too worrisome, they're too stressed, they're always in people's business, they're not accepting, they're too greedy, they're too unaccepting, things like that. So when I go back, they might pick up some of those things and discriminate against me and call me an American. Mm-hmm. And if you ask a lot of Africans what they think about Americans, it's not a very clean picture. They see a very bad picture. So,
do you consider yourself African American?
I consider myself American, but their perception of me would be that way.
Do you think that you'll consider yourself to be American forever, even once you move back to Senegal?
Just no, because America's made me a certain way, and I've lived in America, but New York is not America. And I've lived in other parts of America, and I wouldn't consider myself that kind of American either.
You're New York.
Yeah, like New York is a very certain breed of human being, Mm-hmm. And I love Memphis, Tennessee. I love Louisville, Kentucky. I love Albany, Georgia. I love Athens, Georgia. I love Tampa. I love Cincinnati. But that's not who I am. And I can't consider myself those people, because those people also, they don't consider me them either. So that has to matter, but when I go back to Senegal, I think it'll be easier to become a Senegalese again than it would be to try and stay in America and become an American. Because I know a lot of good people here, but I don't doubt that I'll know a lot of good people in Africa either. So it's a question I've been asking myself, and it's something that's been driving me closer and closer to permanently moving to Senegal, because the evidence has only been pushing me in that direction. There was one time I remember, so where I'm from in Dakar, it's called Gueule Tapée, and it's close to Bel Air, which is there where the airport is.
Mm-hmm.
And the walk from Gueule Tapée to Bel Air is like a big like semicircle. So on the walk, you literally walk in front of. Oh, sorry, I'm okay.
No, thank you.
You see the Atlantic.
Do you need help?
¿Necesita ayuda? Sí? Okay, no problema. Like you see the Atlantic, and it's like nothing but water, and it's beautiful. And I remember one time I was walking with my dad, and I think my brother, but I definitely remember my dad. It was just sunset, the water was orange because of the sun, and we were eating mangoes, which was also orange, so the scene was just like this matte orange like theme. It looked like a painting. And I remember we were walking down the coast, and there was this stretch of road and water where the water was still and there were no cars on the road, so it was completely silent. And we saw a whale come up and break the water and come down, and it made a big splash. And we're talking like the distance of a whole football field, like 200 yards away. And the splash, you felt the mist from the splash in the coast, and you saw it, and you saw the ripples go in every direction, and it was just this scene of like earth, like it was just like you're here moment, you can't be in your head kind of moment. And we kept walking, and like every now and then that scene, those imprints in your mind that just come up out of nowhere, that scene comes up every now and then for me. It's just like, this is earth, this is actual earth, it's not and stress and must eat and must sleep and must procreate and must find this and must do this and must achieve this, and all this is kind of serenity. You're already in paradise, you don't have to look for it,
Right.
It's and that comes up, and it's a good reminder for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm really ambitious, and when you get caught up in your ambitions, it's easy to lose sight of what you already have. It's like when you're driving, you look down the road so much you can't see the roadside. It just goes by you.
Right.
So the first time I saw a lion in person, we were driving from Dakar to Saint Louis, Saint Louis, Senegal is like way into the water. And it's where my mom is from. That's where her family's from. My dad's family's from like Dakar and Yes, and I think my mom's family's from Mauritania, the country adjacent. But we used to go to Saint Louis every summer. And one trip in particular, we were driving, and when you're driving and the road just looks like wet, it's so hot.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just so like a long drive. It was just like that. And you just heard like these footsteps, these stomps, like this stampede. And then my dad was like, okay, let's pull over, because he has experience. He's been all around the world, especially Africa. So he's like, when you hear a stampede, it could be an elephant, it could be gazelles, it can be anything. They could be crossing the street, they could be coming towards you. So just pull over, check for them to go by. If they go by, they go by. If the stampede stops, then they're away, then you can keep driving. So we stopped, and we saw something like 3 gazelles like go across the road, and the stampeding got louder and louder, and then it got slower and slower and slower and slower, and then it went away. And then we just saw these 2 lions. There was like one lion with like a big mane, and like one like smaller lion was like kind of growing a mane, maybe like a baby one. And they were just like, like when you see a cat walking around your house, they were just like that, like just looking around. And they looked at us, and they're wild animals. They don't, they're not domesticated. They don't think too much.
Yeah.
So when they see you, they're just like, and they're just there, and you're just like, and every part of you is just like, you have to focus, like right here, right now. And like when I got older, especially when I studied behavioral psychology, you learn that humans love thrills because it gets you out of your head. It gets you into the moment. It gets you into your adrenaline. So we love those moments, those tense moments. And I specifically remember when we were in the car, I was in the back seat and I was looking over my dad's shoulder. And when I saw the lion, like when he turned around, he was like that, right? And it wasn't, we've gone to like safaris and like those towers where you can see wildlife with your binoculars.
Right.
So we've seen them before, but this was the first time where there was a real potential that it could attack us. So I saw it and I looked at it and I kind of like creeped under my dad's shoulder as if that would help. I was like, don't see me. And I saw it and it just turned around and just kept walking. And my dad was just like, my dad's this really expressive guy. He's the kind of guy that would like throw a fit, take like a 10-minute drive, like leave the house, take a 10-minute drive, come back and be like, okay, so how is everybody? Like he's just really emotional and like impulsive and like what's the word? Turbulent and like that kind of person. So, but he's also like, he can't hide his emotions.
Very real.
Yeah. So he saw that and he was just like, wow. Like that's just something I remember. He was just like, wow. You know, like he's a guy who can appreciate that, you know, and that left an imprint on me because especially after I came to America, I felt like even me, when I started to like develop a little bit of that bro culture in me, when I was going through sports, because that's like all year around, you know, in the locker room, when you're on the field, it's like this weird, like military kind of mindset. So when I started getting entrenched in that, I lost touch with that because everything about bro culture is just like, oh, we're too cool. You know, we know better. You know, one of the big quotes in the whole bro culture is like, act like you've been there. You know, act like you've done that already. You know, so I could imagine if I was a little older and I saw that, I'd be like, yeah, you know, yeah, I've seen a lion before. Yeah, that's a big lion. But my dad was just like, wow. Like he was really like a wow.
How old were you then?
Then I was maybe like 4 or 5.
Do you have any memorable moments of your mom from that young age?
My mom was just, you know, she's a mom. She's the warm one, you know, so she laid the smack down a lot, especially when I was like disrespectful. That was her thing. Don't disrespect.
Right.
You know, you can fuck up. You know, my dad used to get at us for a lot of things, but my mom was like, I forgive you. You're okay. I understand you're going to make mistakes, but just don't disrespect people. You know, don't make fun of people. Don't make people feel stupid. Mm-hmm. So if you made fun of the way someone looked or the way someone dressed or, you know, telling someone that they told you a stupid question or something like that, she didn't appreciate that.
Right.
But she was the warm one. She would be like, eat, you know, and brush your teeth and, you know, come, meet these people, talk to these people. You know, in Senegal, there is no stranger danger. It's like talk to everyone, you know, learn to love everyone, especially people that are like you. You know, and I kind of noticed in America, you know, when you go up to someone and say hi, they're like, you know, like, what do you want from me? Yeah. You know, and I kind of learned this because everyone is raised, you're like, don't talk to strangers. Get away from strangers. They can hurt you. And then when you look at the stats, like 98% of kidnappings or murders are like from family members, you know, from someone they know. But it's like, yeah. But it's like, I kind of saw that was a culture shock for me because even to this day, you kind of notice I'm like that. I'll talk to strangers, no problem. And I always get a little frustrated when I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're just like, you know, like get on their phone. It's like, yeah, you know, like who are you? I don't know. I'm better than you, or, you know, like get away from me, kind of thing.
But she encouraged you to do that from the get-go.
Definitely, there was some positive conditioning.
Did you have other people your parents' age or like older people that were role models or like mentors to you?
Yeah. So, mentors and role models.
Specifically in Senegal.
In Senegal. There was, this guy named Tonton Cherno, which he was a guy who lived on the first floor of our building. And I think every neighborhood kind of has some guy like him. He's like the neighborhood disciplinarian, you know? Like if any kid did anything, he would be one of the first people to kind of like discipline the kids, which is like a weird thing. You know, it's like he would so let's say you got in a fight with a kid. He would be the first one to like grab you guys, go somewhere and like beat you guys with a belt or something, tell you sit down, and then when your parents came, your parents could bring you home. He was kind of like the police, but just for kids.
Right.
You know, so I remember there was this one time I was in his house and he gave me a book, and it was like dark, but it was like candlelit. And he was like, read this book until your dad comes. And the whole time I was like, fuck, you know, this guy's gonna whoop my ass, then my dad's gonna whoop my ass, and when I get home, my mom's gonna whoop my ass. And so I was just there.
What did you do?
I think I got in some fight with some kid, and I chipped his tooth. Like I slammed his head against the floor, and I like chipped his tooth, and that was no good. So, but the kid also fought me, so he got in trouble too, but his parents came immediately. My parents were still in work. My dad was an anchor, so he got out of work at like 6, you know, and I think my mom was up to something. We had a cleaning lady and a nanny too and everything, but I don't know why she couldn't pick me up. But I remember reading this book. It was like a children's book under candlelight, just dark and quiet. And outside was dark, inside was dark, and this guy was just like sitting in the corner with his own little lamp writing something. And he was like listening to old Senegalese music. And I remember looking at some of his pictures from when he was younger, and he looked like he was in the military, and he was like this real strict disciplinarian, good posture, you know, skilled. He looks like he played musical instruments. And there's a part of me that was like, I want to like soften this guy up. I want to like kind of make this guy like me.
Yeah.
So I don't know what brought that about, maybe seeing a picture or something. And I talked to him about the book, I think. I think I told him something like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, I forgot how to say it in Wolof, but Baima, like, help me with something. And he came and he was like talking to me. And the whole time I was just like, you know, like, oh, you know, you're a nice man. Like, you helped our country, things like that. And I was just like trying to compliment him. And he was just like, focus, you know, you have to learn how to read this. You have to learn how to do this so that you can be independent and do this on your own. And I was like, okay. But which is a long way from what he used to say. He used to be like, you are stupid. You are a kid, you know, sit down and don't say anything. But this time he told me something that was probably his intention to help me become independent. So he was like, do this. But this time he sat next to me, I guess to make sure I was reading. And I was just like, you know, I thank you for everything that you do for me. I know that you don't have to. And I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was just trying to be nice. And he looked at me and he was like, I know, but sometimes you have to help your community. It doesn't matter what you get from it. And that left an imprint on me. I was like, this guy is clearly done stuff in his life. He's not like some homeless guy. And he's probably doing this for the sake of his community. And even though he's doing something that he's not liked for by the children, he's still doing it, even though he knows he's not going to be liked by the children. So he really has this sense of duty about him. And that really left something in me, and I appreciated that.
What did the parents think about him?
I don't know what the parents thought about him, but I always remember my dad picking me up and bringing me back, like, oh, it's just don't channel, you know?
Yeah.
That's what he does.
And he was just a dude. He didn't have kids or anything.
He didn't have kids. I found out 2 years ago that he died. My mom told me Tonton Chelno died.
Wow.
And
was he your parents' age?
Around, which comes with the culture, not the culture, the age shock of just entering our age. Because I told you my best friend Kevin's mom died. Well,
when?
This year, my boy Kevin Breslin. You'll have to meet him. He's like my boy. Like, we've gotten into fights together. But his mom died. My best friend Ben died about 6 years ago. And people my mom's age are dying. So that age shock of, ooh, you know, like, you know, they're not going to be there forever kind of creeped in. And it started making me think I had to take care of my mom more. But then last week, well, I obviously haven't introduced you, but Michelle, my girlfriend, the girl I've been seeing, her she was telling me a story about how her brother-in-law, Max, committed suicide a few years ago, and how, what was it? It was someone else, Judy, her sister's teacher or something like that. Sorry, passed away recently, and it made me think, it doesn't matter what you do. Like, she was like fit. She was like into cycling. She was like had like a vegetarian or vegan diet, and she passed away. And she was like, man, no matter what you do, sometimes your time's up. So it made me think, okay, let's do less of taking care of mom and do more of appreciating mom while she's here.
Yeah.
And accepting the fact that she's just going to go. And so the physical part of it I've accepted, but the cognitive, not cognitive, the visceral sense of loss, I imagine it, but I can't overcome it. Because when I imagine it, it always gives me a reaction.
Right.
So it's something that I guess was going to hit me like a ton of bricks, but I'm trying to appreciate my mom while she's here now. Because especially considering her family history and everything, I can't take her time for granted.
What happens when you imagine it? You don't think that like working through that now would help when it does happen?
It's not that I can't work through it now. I can think about it, ponder it, and think about what would happen before, during, and after. It's just when I think about it, I can't get over it. I can't say, oh, okay, I can deal with this emotion. I can't be cold about it. I still can't help but, cry and, have a sense of, yearning to see her. Every time I think about that, I text her or something, so I'm sure when she actually goes, it'll be something that's going to hit me hard. Because right now, I don't hit her up all the time, but when I think about her being gone, I immediately hit her up.
Yeah, I don't think the reaction is supposed to be anything less than that for anyone that's close to you. But I mean, especially a mother.
Yeah. You also don't think about everything they've done for you until then, too. Because she's made a whole bunch of unnecessary sacrifices. She could have been her own woman. She decided to be a family woman instead. She graduated college, she had skills, she had connections, she had a big family that can get her places. She has her aunt is a dentist, she's got family that are professionals. She decided to raise her 3 kids instead. And they paid off for us. And you appreciate that when you're older. Because when you're young, your perspective isn't big enough. It's just you and your life. But when you get bigger, you can be compassionate to the way adults operate.
Yeah.
If I think about the word love, definitely caring is the first thing. When you love someone, you care about them, obviously. That's the first thing. And I think where love has different definitions comes from just either pop culture, parents, or friends, or whatever. But at the end of the day, anyone you really actually care about, you care for them, their well-being, their mind, their body, their experience in life, then you love them. And that's what love is, caring about those things. If you can validate that someone cares about what you think, how you live, how well your body operates, then that's it. Well, I was taught family first, and, my dad, he taught me at a young age that we're like pack animals. And, there are people within that pack and there are people outside that pack. And it's justifiable to not be okay with people outside the pack. But if anyone's in your pack, you have to give them full loyalty. Those are your people, and you have people within and outside the pack. And those are the people you quote unquote decide to love. And that's something I was taught growing up. And a lot of those people were Africans, Muslims, whatever group I can be lumped into. I don't think anyone has to be like you for you to love them. Yeah, it's very externally influenced.
When do you feel the most alive?
I don't think about this too much anymore. It's something I used to think about a lot more before. There was a few years ago when I was living at Stan's and life was pretty good. I felt like I checked a lot of things off the list, and when you do that, you get a little bit of confidence. And so I would ask myself those types of questions and take them seriously. And when I ask myself, when do I feel the most alive, I would probably think to, Definitely when I'm playing sports, any type of competition, the best of me comes out. Any kind of competition, I would say anytime follow through on something, like I say I'm going to do something serious or big, and I follow through, it just, pumps you up. Let me see. Whenever I do something that makes me feel like a good person, even though I don't necessarily like those words, what I mean by good person means when you're a good human to other humans, like when you're contributing to other humans. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way to do things, because you can be selfish. I feel like it's an arbitrary decision. You'll have to deal with the consequences of that, but it's just something you could decide to do. Anyway, to go all the way back to your question, I think the root of what makes me feel the most alive is just anything that involves any progress or any contribution and progress. Those are the things that like really make me feel good. Even sometimes I notice when I'm walking down the street and I'm like with a girlfriend or a friend that I really love or a family member I really get along with, if I like if I'm like standing still and like moving away or something and they're moving, I'll almost feel this draw, like this pull to like move in that direction. It's like this unity, this gravity you have. So love definitely has that strength, 100%. In a spiritual sense too. You can even change someone's entire mind if they love you. So the answer to that is a big yes. And with great power comes great responsibility. Well, maybe something I've been asking myself for a while. Is it worth pursuing love? Right? So everyone kind of has love in their life. The most desperate person, loneliest person in the world, at the very least, has themselves to love, right? But is it worth pursuing? So if you have people around you that you love, you have that love, you exercise that love, you go out with them, you spend time with them, you enjoy their company, you let them help you develop, you help develop them. It's like this little wolf pack help, like just a family kind of. You just become a family. But when you have other people in your life, people who aren't that circle, and you just meet them, you're introduced to them, maybe there's someone you're attracted to, maybe there's someone you just want in your life because they're a really good presence, you want them as a friend. Is it worth pursuing it? Should you go after it, or should you just stick with the people you have? It's a question that was brought to me by a few people. So I've just been thinking about that a lot, and whether it's better to tighten your group or if it's better to make your group bigger or allow your group to be bigger. So, and my answer right now, this moment, is a little bit leaning more towards keep the people you have around. Just keep them around. And if it goes all the way down to one, you go back home, quote unquote, you die in peace by yourself, at the very least. And you accept it. All right, my name's Cheikh Tall. I'm 26 years old. I had to think about that. Today's November 14th, 2018. I'm in Foley Square, Manhattan. There you go.
I wanted to start by asking you, who has been the kindest to you in your life?
I would say my first organized baseball Coach Ed Holly. He probably doesn't know his impact because he had so much of an impact. He had a lot of kids under him. Well, not literally. That'd be nasty. But but he taught me a lot about being mature and taking care of responsibility, having a moral backbone. That's probably the thing I learned from him the most. He really showed me that the right thing to do is very difficult, and you have to get yourself there. It's a skill to be able to consistently do it, no matter what people say, no matter if you get bad results. An extreme example would be a soldier jumping on top of a grenade. He's doing the right thing, but obviously it's paying his life. Now, thankfully, I don't have to confront that situation, but that's the kind of thing I learned from him. And he gave me my first two nicknames that stuck.
What are they?
the son of chocolate, and El Chico de la Noche, which pretty much means the kid of the night. And those stuck.
How old were you when you met him?
I was, I believe, 13. No, I was maybe 12 when I met him, and I joined the team either 13 or 14.
When you started?
Yeah, and I actually met him through my best friend who passed. I told you about him, Ben. He actually he loved baseball, big Yankees fan, and he played for Coach Ed's team, and he was like, "Hey, come play one summer." And I went, and it was completely casual to me. I was like, "I'm a football player. What is this? This is a soft sport." So I played with them, and it was fun in the way where it's not like, yay, we're having fun, but it's like challenging. It's like,
Yeah.
and then you win sometimes. You hit the ball or you throw a good ball, and it's like, yeah, you know. So there are a lot of small successes, and it's kind of like you work hard for them, so they feel great. And since then, I've stuck with baseball.
Do you find yourself going back to thinking about what like Eddie has said to you and like living by that?
Yeah,
Because it sounds like you, the crude humor and all of it. It
yeah.
sounds very much like you.
He's always a little bit in the back of my mind because I believe that older people, a lot of them got to where they got through a lot of experience and they have a lot of things to share. So there are very few people that I trust a lot, and I think about the things they've told me a lot. I don't trust everybody, but the people I do trust, I really, hold them to a high standard, and I take their word as the Bible.
Yeah. I kind of feel that way with you a little bit.
Mm.
Let's see. Okay, so tell me about some of the people that you love right now.
Mm. Yeah. So there are a lot of people I care about, but if I had to like pick a select elite group of people that, you know, I would actually put like an extraordinary effort for, it would be obviously Stan. I've been living for him for a long time. He's been a good mentor to me. He's been a very good friend to me. He's helped me out a lot when I needed help. I mean, he has the means to help too, but he he's given me a lot of moral support too, which I didn't expect. I always stereotyped people like him in two ways: lawyers and Eastern Europeans,
Yeah.
because I stereotype both of those groups. But after meeting him, I kind of like diluted that with water. It's like, yeah, sure they're around there, but everyone's kind of like similar. And Stan kind of woke me up to that, mainly because of like his love and support.
Hmm.
Obviously my mom, she's been, you have to just put moms in that group. The sacrifices they make, even though they kind of have to, and they want to too, because you're theirs. It's still really fucking hard, man. It's hard when you watch them go through what they have to do. And I remember my mom coming home some nights at 11 p.m. We're still up. She comes with a box of cookies and milk and says, "Here you guys go, eat, guys." And we already had Chinese food. She say, "Eat, guys," and she'll just watch, Sex in the City on Channel 11 and go to sleep without eating, and we'd have a full stomach and everything. So I have to put her in that list. Like, I'll do anything for my mom, and I try my best to now.
And you do.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of me, but every time I think about that, I think it's a small sacrifice. She made a way bigger sacrifice. And obviously my coach Ed, he's actually having a show soon.
Do you still see him?
I try to. He has shows. He plays music as well. He's a singer, and I try and go to his shows. I was real sporadic. Ever since he stopped going to the Shrine in Harlem, I've been real inconsistent going to his shows. But I'm gonna have to go to the next one. So definitely him.
Can I just ask a question? Will you repeat his name?
Ed Holly. It's
Okay.
Edgar Holly.
That's your coach.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, here, let me ask you something else, and then you can come back to that. How would you define like love, or how are you categorizing these people? What is it about them that they all share in common that makes you feel this way?
It's like a sympathetic. I don't want to say compassion. It's beyond compassion. It's not just seeing someone as being like you. It's also like a deep respect and reverence. It's like, you're one of my pack. We're gonna roll together. And
pretty much anyone I put on this list is pretty much that. People I would do anything for, and I also feel like they would do anything for me. It has to be mutual. And I feel that for all those people. And, you know, ATN is one of them, my boss, the owner. I have a complicated relationship with him because we're also like semi-business partners. I work for him, and I want to always keep some distance in that relationship because it helps the engine run smoother. But, you know, he's supported me a lot. I know some of the things he's done that he hasn't mentioned. So he's like in the background doing amazing things, and he's not getting a lot of honor for it. Someone else I love a lot is my ex-girlfriend, Carrie. We still talk. It's platonic at this point, but the thing we had that kept our relationship going for 3 years is still going. You know, we still care about each other. She still asks me how am I feeling. You know, I'm constantly keeping up with her journey into becoming a doctor because I was there for it.
Yeah.
And I saw all those late nights, those late Adderall nights, the studying nights, me trying to help her study and not being able to fucking pronounce these Greek words because everything in medicine has to be Greek somehow. But she is like outstanding. It would have been amazing if we worked out, but I actually prefer that we didn't because there's really no jeopardy in ruining our relationship now as friends.
Yeah.
Which is a good segue into our relationship because a lot of the things I learned from Carrie, the good and the bad, you know, you were very close after her. Not that, you know, our relationship's kind of complicated. We'll probably talk about it right now, but from what I understand, we weren't together, but I still care about you a lot somehow, you know, and we have a tight relationship. We have a lot of similar views, and you know, a lot of the characteristics you have that I would put on you, you know, I feel like Carrie didn't have. So for you to roll in after Carrie was just like, wait, this is the jackpot. You know, I appreciate you a lot for your sympathy, kind of, because you always hear people out and you always try and see where they're coming from and you take their word to heart. I think even though you may know sometimes that they're lying, you still listen to them. I don't make the effort because sometimes it is a lot of effort to put these strong emotions aside to tell the truth, but I don't make that effort for everyone. And these people that are on this list, including you, I've made that effort for. Even though sometimes my belly rolls into a knot and, you know, I don't want to say what I want to say. And sometimes I try and hide certain things. I say, no, let me go. And then I end up saying it like, no, this is what's happening. But it's very important because you're sharing your reality with these people. It's good for all of you to see the same reality. And that can't happen when you're bullshitting or hiding things or straight up making things up. So that's my list of people I love, I'll say. That's a small list.
I remember I felt infatuated just like by the idea that we could bond over the fact that we were so like uncommon from each other.
It's beautiful. Like we connect on a more human level. It's not surface level.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, a little altruism. There's no I without other, you know? And it's like someone told me this saying once when I was kind of in a rut, and it still happens like every year, at least at one point I just get into this rut and I'm just like, why am I doing anything? But
I remember that last year.
Yeah. But it's good because it's a source of a lot of motivation for me because on the other side of it I'm like, bow, ferocious.
Yeah.
And for me, like the quote someone once told me when I was in one of those ruts, you're trying to find the puzzle piece onto which you're the only piece that fits, you know? There's a big puzzle and you're one piece and you can find your spot. You know, you don't necessarily, you know, it might be predetermined, but you can also just make one up yourself. And I've been going with that ever since. There's no meaning to life, but every part of life has to do with other people. So to do things together and to do things for each other. Another great quote, and I'm going to finish with the quotes for at least 10 minutes. If everybody scratches their own back, only the people with long arms can scratch their backs. if everyone scratches each other's backs, everyone's back will be scratched. You know, and that's also something I carry with me. And I always, you know, from the coffee shop, when someone comes in, you know, maybe they're, you know, in a mood and they kind of take it out on me, you know, I can use my compassion on two levels. One, being someone that in the past has been pissed off and taken it out on someone, and also being someone who just wants to go in somewhere and get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And when they come in, whether or not they throw their money at me or, you know, maybe have a hostile tone, I can understand, all right, you know what? You're not walking in here saying, I want to fuck Chad's life up. So because of that, I'm just going to give you a drink and say, hey, you know what? Here you go. Right? And in the past, it's kind of arrogant to do, but I've told people, hey, have a better one.
Yeah.
But they get pissed off when you say that. So I stopped that. But, you know, it's just a little compassion. Put yourself in their shoes. That's all it means.
Yeah.
Because compassion can be being polite, but it can also be, you know, when your kid's saying, I don't want to do my homework, realizing, hey, you're just being lazy. All right, just buck up and do your homework, you know. Or when someone just scratches themselves and say, no, I want to go home. It's like, no, keep hiking. You know, you're fine. You know, I'd be fine in that situation. We're similar. You're probably fine.
Yeah.
You know, that's a form of compassion. I come from a small space in Senegal, and a lot of people knew each other. It was still big enough that a lot of people didn't know each other, but I like that small town feel, you know. And that's also a big thing that I like about the South. You know, a lot of people are very open and have conversations with people on the street. You know, there's an old guy walking into a restaurant of 50 people. He'll still look around and be like, good morning. It's to everyone, and everyone will be like, good morning. And it's like, whoa, you know, and I love that, you know. And like, I feel like humans are still pack animals. You know, we have dogs and we act like dogs. And I think that if we all come together and do everything together, not necessarily the world's going to be a better place, because that's subjective. Better for you is bad for someone else, and that's acceptable. But we'll all make a lot of strides. And that's like a little ideal I have for the future, that more people will be open to each other and not be so closed off in the beginning.
Yeah.
I also think I had that opinion because I'm such a weirdo, you know, in many facets of life, but particularly because I'm an outsider, both literally and figuratively. You know, I have just naturally formed different beliefs than other people, and I'm from a different place. So, you know, I don't see eye to eye with a lot of people, which kind of forced me to have to learn to connect people without seeing eye to eye with people, which is like an advantage, you know.
Yeah, and you're really good at that. Again.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I do have more questions. And I just felt like really comfortable with the whole thing.
Good.
Because they really like you and respect you, and I felt the same from you towards them. So it was a huge relief, I feel like, after a year as well.
So I want to know, how would you define our relationship now? I'll answer the same.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I think right now that you're my family. Like, I spent the whole last year with you, it feels like, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we've been through a lot. It felt different.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. What about you?
You know, right now, you know, had you not answered first, I would have said we're best friends. But I definitely, you know, feel the family thing. You know, it's when you're friends with someone, there's almost like this little sense of expenditure. I don't know what the term is, but you can kind of let them go and kind of be okay.
Mm.
But when you lose family, it hits. You know, there's something in you that feels like it's missing. And I've kind of felt that before with you. So I don't think we're just friends on my end. I would have said that.
Yeah.
But what I feel is I actually think we're a lot closer than that.
I remember feeling that when you were going through the whole situation with your DACA and trying to get it renewed.
Yeah.
The feeling of like you losing you felt like huge, and I hadn't even known you for that long at that point.
Yeah, I actually felt the same way. And it's
Yeah.
like when you were going to Georgia, you know, something I do to try and comfort people is I put the whole macho face on, and then I'll admit to you that later on I was being macho.
Yeah.
But in the moment, to make people comfortable, I'll put that face on. And when you said you were going back to Georgia, I was, we weren't even seeing each other that much. It was like maybe once a week. And we were still, I was still like, damn, I'm not going to see her for 3 months or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think that put a toll on our relationship?
I don't think
That
so.
distance?
Because like the connection was like really deep. Like our connection was really deep. So we could not see each other for years, and then we see each other, we give each other a big hug, and it's just back to normal, It's the same thing with some of my best friends, like Ashley, I see him after a few months. Where
And it goes back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you coming in. I think that I thought about who to bring in, and like immediately it was you, and I didn't have any other, or I didn't want to have any other options. I don't think that this kind of conversation comes with other people that I know, because we've had conversations like this before, and that just works really well.
Yeah.
And I love you, and thank you.
I love you too. Nah. All love. Thanks for coming in too, and we'll keep talking. This isn't the last time we're gonna talk.